Paddy Cosgrove, you're involved in the Dublin Web Summit, which will be happening at the end of the month. What are you seeing here that the kind of people who come to your summit would find useful?
Well, first of all, I think there's a huge understanding that sometimes people don't appreciate amongst the government and the government agencies, and that was probably demonstrated on stage this morning by the Taoiseach and the Taoiseach, that there's a clear understanding that most of the growth in terms of GDP growth over the coming years is going to come from fast-moving sectors, and one of those is going to be the tech sector. And for all of those founders of tech companies from right across the world coming at the end of October, that's a positive thing, and hopefully some of the engagement, or at least the rhetoric on stage that we've heard this morning, and I'm sure we'll hear over the course of the next 2 days, will result in some real follow-through at the end of October, when the founders of Skype and YouTube and LinkedIn and many other companies arrive in Dublin.
Is there a connection with some of the ideas which were formulated in Farmley, some of the ideas and issues which are being discussed here this morning, and that world that you inhabit of fast-moving technology companies?
Sure, I think there's a connection. One of the connections is that there's huge potential in leveraging the Irish network that exists overseas, both the diaspora and the immediate immigrants, or people that have left the country and arrived in new countries originally from Ireland. And there's certainly already a huge presence in Silicon Valley, and I think through the IDA and other networks, the Global Irish Network, there are massive opportunities to leverage that relationship. Certainly earlier today, this morning, there was a small kind of a panel discussion before the discussions on stage about the opportunity in particular for Irish cultural ambassadors, and one of them here today is Gabriel Byrne, to really go and meet and engage with a lot of these tech companies. I think we have a huge asset, and one of those assets is culture. And it's a very magnetic force that draws people to events. As a country, if we're to run events around the world, I think we should leverage the assets that we have, which is fantastic actors and musicians and writers who draw interest right across the world, and their presence in countries and cities, in particular in San Francisco, would help to create the type of events that would draw out the type of people that ordinarily might not engage with Ireland. So they create the playing field on top of which the IDA and the government can engage and push the type of messages that they're trying to get across. But there's so many other countries trying to get across the same message, which is locate in Sweden or locate in Denmark or locate in London. For Ireland to do that, they just need to leverage all the assets that they have.
So are people wrong when they think that companies only locate here for hard-nosed reasons about costs and so forth?
I think initially those were certainly a consideration, but as you look at the next wave of tech companies setting up in Ireland. So you remember Google set up in Ireland maybe 7 years ago, one of the first major players in what could be called the Web 2.0 space, and as more companies began to arrive, it created a huge opportunity for Facebook, for example, to directly recruit talented people out of Google that have been trained up over 3 or 4 years on somebody else's time and dime, and place them in senior management positions in Facebook, and then begin to fill out the rest of that organization with more recent graduates. And that process has been repeated now with Zynga, will be repeated with Twitter and with LinkedIn. So the attractiveness of Ireland progressively over time changes as the type of workers that you can recruit become more skilled in the particular areas that you're looking for. So I think that's a positive development, and I think a lot of other companies will continue to locate here, not just because of tax, but also because of the specific skills that the workforce in this country have.
If there was one thing to come from this forum that you'd like to see, what would it be?
I think specifically I'm speaking on a panel on how to engage the most recent Irish that have left the country, and I think that's a huge challenge. But engaging Irish amongst other Irish in a new city isn't necessarily enough. It's great for a bunch of Irish people to meet up in a bar or in an embassy and have a great time and get to know each other, but the next step is actually trying to engage those Irish, the recent Irish that arrive in these new cities, into broader networks that aren't just Irish or Irish Americans in the case of the United States. So I think there's probably a role for some type of mentorship that can be facilitated through the government and through the Department of Foreign Affairs in identifying people that will help some young, talented people that leave this country to integrate and network better in the cities that they arrive into, and particularly in the United States and Australia and elsewhere.
Okay, Paddy Cosgrove, thanks very much.
Thank you.